Hello, I'm Nigel Sneed, Global Wine Director for Accolade Wines, and we're delighted to be sharing with you our new releases. As winemakers, we feel so privileged to be the custodians of the accumulated knowledge and exceptional vineyards that we nurture across Australia. As 21 vintage comes to an end, we look forward to sharing with you our new releases from previous successful vintages. And we hope this year's releases continue to delight and inspire you as much as they do us. This is the 2019 Eileen Hardy Chardonnay. Eileen Chardonnay represents the premium top Chardonnay which the company makes and has been making since the late 80s. This 2019 vintage was a cool, dry summer, preceded by winter which gave adequate rainfall, so even in the very coolest regions of the Yarra Valley, grapes were able to ripen to full maturity. This wine, the unique thing is that it was blended. In this case, in 2019, there was a dominant proportion of Yarra Valley and a small proportion of Margaret River. When you're dealing with such good fruit, winemaking is very simple. It's really about less is more. So minimal intervention to the extent that the yeasts are natural that conduct the fermentation. It's all fermented in oak barrels of varying sizes, varying ages. It's left on its yeast lees to gather body and richness and texture, and a proportion goes through subtle malolactic fermentation just to soften that high acidity which you get from premium, cool climate grapes. So it's got beautiful, light golden green hues. The bouquet is a very complex mix of the white stone fruits, light citrus notes, and then you've got that faint vanilla hint in the background from the oak barrel maturation. Then the palate, you really get that creamy yeast leaves texture, building on the richness, building on the fruit, and a soft, long finish. And all of that is knitted together by a very fine line from start to finish of beautiful, natural acidity. Now, these wines can be drunk now, but we know that they have fantastic longevity as well. They can live for a very long time indeed. This is the Eileen Hardy Shiraz, which is the Hardy Company's top Shiraz wine. In fact, we're very proud of the fact that it has an excellent rating under the Langton's classification of Australian wines, and it is one of Australia's most collected Shirazes, year in, year out. The 2018 vintage is all from McLaren Vale. It was a year which had a fairly wet winter, so the good soil reserves of water, and then it was a hot, dry summer, and then mild March, so the grapes ripened under perfect conditions, all hand-picked, fermented in open fermenters, plunged daily with pumping over occasionally, and then drained into oak barrels of various sizes, both new, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, for maturation. The structure of this wine reflects the origins. Great fruit, perfectly ripened. Deep ruby colour, intense, bright, vibrant. Then it's got that classic dark chocolate, plum aroma of McLaren Vale district, light spice typical of Shiraz, and then slight notes of vanillin over the top coming from the oak barrels. The wine can be described as an iron fist in a velvet glove because it's deceptively strong. The tannins are very silky. They have that lovely, ripe, soft structure, but they're present and they help this wine live. It has a fine acid line, neither too high nor too low, just in perfect balance to keep the freshness and vibrancy. History has shown that this wine can live many, many years, but it can also be enjoyed young, but it really is a classic, made for aging, made for cellaring, which is what contributes to its collectability. This is the 1853 Hardy's Cabernet. And this is a new range for us, named in recognition of the founding of the company in 1853. It's a blended wine, which is true to Thomas Hardy's initial convictions that the best wines are made from blends of the best components available. And it's blended from grapes grown in several regions of South Australia to really represent what we feel is the best value at that level in South Australia. Now, it's a wine which has the structure and body to age for 5 to 10 years, but it could also be enjoyed now for those who like their wines showing young primary fruit characters. The 2019 vintage followed a fairly wet winter Then was a hot summer and warm autumn period, so the vines ripened to full maturity. Hence you have ripe fruit flavours of mulberry, cassis, and that classic leafy note from Cabernet Sauvignon. And then quite a mocha note from the oak. The proportion of newer oak barrels in this wine is higher than in some of the other Hardy's wines, so you have that classic oak impact, which is marrying with the fruit. And so as it's coming together now in bottle, it can be enjoyed, but probably best kept for 2 to 5 years and then enjoyed from 5 through to 10. This is the 1853 Hardy's Shiraz, which is named after the founder of the company in 1853. And this is a 2019 vintage, which was quite a hot, dry summer, but that followed what was a wet winter, so the vines had adequate water nutrition. And then a reasonably warm autumn period allowed the grapes to achieve full maturity. And in keeping with Thomas Hardy's initial approach to making wine, this is not from one single region, but a blend of premium regions within South Australia. What we're looking for in this wine, which was made for the first time in 2019, is ripe fruit expression classic to the variety. So plums, blueberry, dark spices, and that is married with quite mocha oak, a little bit more oak than in some of the other Hardy's wines, and designed to be a wine which can be enjoyed after 2 to 3 years in bottle, with an ageability up to about 10 years of good cellaring. This is the Thomas Hardy Cabernet Sauvignon, which is our company's top Cabernet, not made every year, only really made when the very best conditions combine to give us the premium wine which is worthy of the company's founder. Generally, the blend will revolve around Coonawarra and Margaret River, occasionally with some contributions from other premium Cabernet regions as well. But in the case of this 2017 vintage, it's a dominant blend of Coonawarra, which brings structure and power and classic cassis ripeness of Cabernet, along with Margaret River, which gives some more red fruited notes, lift, fragrance, and very fine linear structure. The winemaking, as with all great wines from great vineyards, is fairly minimalist. Natural yeasts, open fermenters with plunging, as well as some closed fermentations pumping over and prolonged skin contact to really extract long, persistent and dense tannins. The acidity, as you would expect from premium regions, is very finely balanced, and the wine shows great power and depth of that cassis fruit, light red fruited notes. It's got an oak contribution which is very subtle. It really sits in the background because the fruit is so dense that although it is aged principally in new French oak barrels, it's barely perceptible. With a wine of that structure and intensity, as you would expect, it's a very big wine now, and it has a huge longevity potential in front of it. We recommend at least 20 years aging potential.